Barrow, Alaska, is the northernmost town in the US, and every year, it has 30 days without sunlight. The movie starts with a man, called the Stranger, walking away from a large ship frozen in ice. He slowly makes his way through the snow until he reaches Barrow. It's the last day before the sun disappears. After this, we see Eben Olsen and Officer Billy take a stand in the snow, looking at something odd, a pile of burnt cell phones. Billy thinks maybe some kids were playing a prank, but Eben doesn't agree. He says kids would have left a note or some kind of clue. Eben still has his phone, though. The two watch the sunset together and joke about Billy's wife. It's clear Eben has problems with his own wife. Later, they drive to the town's entrance sign. Billy writes down that 152 people are staying for the month. Eben uses his asthma inhaler in the car. Meanwhile, families at the airport say goodbye to loved ones who are catching their last flight out before the long night begins. Somewhere else in town, a group of dogs starts barking loudly, but then the Stranger kills all of them. On their way back to the police station, Eben and Billy see Bo, a local man, working on his truck. Some oil spills from the back onto the road. Eben gives Bo a ticket for the mess, even though Bo tries to talk his way out of it. Meanwhile, Stella Olsen, Eben's wife, finishes checking the supplies left in town. She's also heading to the airport to catch the last flight out. Stella is driving fast through the snow to reach the airport when a tractor with drills on the front crashes into her car, completely wrecking it. The driver checks to see if she's okay, and she says she's fine but needs to get to the airport quickly. He says that his mother can come out and tow her there, but it won't be fast. Meanwhile, Eben drops Billy off at the station and is about to leave when he gets a call from Stella. Their conversation is awkward, as they haven't spoken in a while. Stella explains what happened and asks if he can give her a ride to the airport. Eben says he can't because of an urgent call he just received, but he sends Billy to help her instead. Eben goes to the Reese family's house, where John and Ally are upset after finding all their sled dogs brutally killed. Eben asks John if maybe he got in a fight recently and pissed someone off, but he says no. Eben sees that the killings happened recently and promises to find out who did it. Back at the police station, Eben's younger brother, Jake, is passing time by playing a game. He tries to get their grandmother, Helen, to play with him, but she refuses. He then asks Eben, but he also declines. Meanwhile, Billy picks up Stella, and they head to the airport, but they find out she's missed the last flight. Stuck in town for the month, Stella isn't sure where she'll stay. Billy offers to let her stay with his family, and maybe they figure out what went wrong with her relationship with Eben. Meanwhile, Eben is called to a factory by Carter Davies and Wilson Bulosin. They show him Wilson's helicopter, which has been completely destroyed in piece and fed into a grinder. They're baffled about why anyone would do such a thing. At the power plant, Gus Lambert hears strange noises outside. When he steps out to check, dark figures surround him and violently kill him by tearing his throat open. The Stranger then goes to a local restaurant and asks the owner, Lucy Ecos, for alcohol, but she tells him they don't have any because of the month of darkness. He then demands a raw hamburger, but Lucy says the patties are frozen. Angry, the Stranger grabs her arm, but Eben walks in and tells him to let her go. The Stranger obeys, but when Eben asks him to step outside to talk, he refuses. Eben warns him he'll force him outside if needed. The Stranger stands up and challenges him. Before things escalate, Stella points her gun at the Stranger from behind, ordering him to cooperate. Instead, he tries to attack her, but Eben pins him to the counter and cuffs him. They load him into Eben's truck and take him to the police station and lock him in jail. While in jail, Eben asks the Stranger how he got there, since they would have seen him before if he traveled there by plane, and he's not from around there. The Stranger remains silent. After some time, the Stranger starts speaking, warning that they're all powerless against what's coming. Stella dismisses it as an attempt to scare them, but Jake admits it's working. Eben decides to check on Gus at the power plant. The Stranger taunts them, saying they should board up the windows and hide, though it won't help. Eben demands to know who they are, but before the Stranger can answer, the entire town's power goes out. The backup generators kick in, and Eben heads out alone to check on Gus. At the power plant, Eben finds the door broken open. With his pistol ready, he cautiously moves forward until he notices something in the snow, blood, and a lot of it. Following the trail, he discovers Gus's severed head gruesomely impaled on a pole. Horrified, Eben rushes back to the main street and warns everyone to go home and arm themselves. For those without generators, he directs them to Lucy's diner to wait safely. Stella, Helen, and Jake pass the time playing a board game while the Stranger starts speaking in a creepy tone. He warns them that the cold they feel isn't just the weather, it's death getting closer. He also brags about how he'll be rewarded for helping them. Jake gets annoyed, throws a game piece at him, and tells him to shut up. The Stranger smirks and says Jake shouldn't have done that because now he can use the piece to unlock his cell. Jake tries to grab the piece, but the Stranger lunges at him and grabs his throat. Before it gets worse, Eben arrives and shoots the Stranger in the arm, forcing him to let go. Eben handcuffs the stranger to the cell bars so he's facing the wall and can't move freely. Helen suggests calling the doctor to treat his wound, but Eben refuses, saying he can bleed for now after what he did to Jake. Eben decides to leave and get help, and Stella offers to go with him. They leave Helen and Jake at the station with a stun gun for protection. As Eben and Stella drive through the snow, Eben suddenly tells her to stop. He gets out of the car, sensing something ahead. Stella uses binoculars and sees something alarming. She quickly tells Eben to get back in the car. They reverse and speed back toward town, but a vampire jumps onto the car roof, smashing it with his fists. Eben shoots through the roof, but the bullets barely slow the creature down. Stella slams the brakes, throwing the vampire off the car, and they drives away. Meanwhile, John is sitting nervously with his rifle at his home, while Ally tries to get him to eat dinner in the kitchen. Suddenly, a vampire crashes through the window and hides behind the table. John rushes to the kitchen and sees Ally being dragged through the window. She's pulled outside and underneath their house. John grabs onto her, trying to save her, but the vampire overpowers him, breaking his leg and slashing his face before taking Ally away. At the oil factory, 3 workers finish their shift. Aaron and Gabe argue over where to go, while Denise jokes that neither will get her alone. They laugh about it, but while they're playing rock, paper, scissors, Gabe is suddenly grabbed by a vampire and dragged into the darkness. Aaron and Denise panic, and Gabe's lifeless body drops next to them, his throat torn open. Denise runs for her life, but Aaron freezes in shock, unaware of the vampires closing in behind him. Meanwhile, as Eben and Stella drive to the main street, they spot an overturned car engulfed in flames. Suddenly, they hear Helen screaming over the radio. They rush to the police station, only to find Jake and Helen missing and blood splattered in the corner. The stranger, still handcuffed in the cell, is furious that the vampires didn't take him. He begs Eben to kill him, but Eben refuses. Elsewhere, the vampire leader Marlowe is instructing other vampires to rip the heads off their victims so they won't turn into more vampires, keeping their food supply pure. At Lucy's diner, Denise arrives with Carter, Wilson's father Isaac, Jake, and Lucy. Elsewhere, the vampire leader Marlowe and Iris attack a couple in their home. The man shoots Marlowe in the chest, but the bullets don't affect him. Marlowe kills the man by pinning him to the wall with a fire poker, while Iris brutally bites into the woman's throat. The vampires begin a killing spree, dragging people from their homes and slaughtering them. They then attack on Eben's police van, lifting the back of the police truck. Eben manages to kill one, but Marlowe snatches his gun, and the vampires flip the truck over. Just as the vampires try to pull Eben and Stella from the overturned truck, Bo arrives with his tractor, crushing a few vampires. He helps Eben and Stella escape, and they head to the diner. Once there, Jake tearfully tells Eben he saw the vampires kill Helen. Knowing the diner isn't safe, the group decides to move to a house with a hidden attic. Eben, Stella, Bo, Jake, Denise, Carter, Wilson, Isaac, Lucy, and Doug make it to the house and climb into the attic. They plan to sleep in shifts and ration their supplies. At the police station, Marlowe enters the stranger's cell. The stranger cries, thinking he will be rewarded, but Marlowe coldly praises him before snapping his neck. Eben begins to grow a beard, and Doug grows restless, not wanting to just wait for the vampires to find them. He starts making a lot of noise, and Jake tries to calm him down. Doug ends up getting into a fight with Eben. They are pulled apart, and Eben warns him that fighting will get them killed faster. For now, they need to stay quiet and lay low. Meanwhile, a girl named Kirsten Toomey walks through the streets, screaming for help. The survivors hear her, and Carter suggests they should bring her in. However, Eben warns that she might be bait to lure them out. Eben's instincts are right, as they spot vampires watching Kirsten from the rooftops. She turns a corner and comes face to face with Arvin, a vampire with a bloodied face, smiling at her. Kirsten, terrified, tells them that since nobody answered her cries, she believes the others must all be dead. The vampires then circle around her and kill her. Eben realizes they can't stay in the attic forever. He decides to go to the police station to get weapons. Eben grabs a pistol and cautiously moves through the town. He hears someone calling his name and spots John hiding under a house. Eben approaches him, asking how long he's been there. John doesn't remember and says his leg hurts. Eben helps him up, but is shocked when he sees that John's eyes are dark and his teeth are sharp. John tries to bite him, but Eben pushes him away and aims his gun at him. John knocks the gun out of Eben's hand and attacks, but he gets caught in a swing set. Eben grabs an axe and hacks at John's neck, killing him. Eben returns to the house where the others are hiding, collapsing inside. He has an asthma attack, but lost his inhaler during the fight with John. Stella and Bo help him up to the attic and calm him down. Meanwhile, Marlowe discovers John's body and is furious when he sees that John has turned into a vampire. Eventually, Isaac grows tired of staying in the attic and tries to leave. Wilson and Stella manage to calm him down, and Isaac heads to the bathroom. Suddenly, A noise comes from inside the bathroom. Wilson tries to open the door, but it's locked. He unlocks it and finds that the window is open and Isaac is gone. Wilson decides to go outside to look for him, but Stella tries to stop him. During the struggle, Wilson pushes her off, and she hits her head hard on a chair. Wilson leaves the house to search for Isaac. Eben finds Stella and asks what happened. As they hear footsteps, they quickly hide in the bathroom. Arvin enters the house and is about to open the bathroom door when he hears Isaac scream as he's killed. Shortly after, Wilson also becomes a victim, feasted upon by the vampires. The survivors hear noises coming from the roof and think it's the vampires, but it turns out to be just the snowstorm. Since the vampires won't be out in the storm, they decide to take advantage of the moment and head to the store for supplies. Once they get to the store, Eben assigns everyone specific tasks, like getting canned food, walkie-talkies, and medicine, while Eben picks up a new inhaler. While gathering supplies, they hear noises from the back and realize they aren't alone. They find a vampire girl feeding on someone's throat. The girl attacks them, scratching Carter's face. Eben tries to hit her with an axe, but misses because of her size. The survivors manage to pin her against the wall, and Jake ends up killing her. They're all shaken by what just happened, and as the snowstorm clears up, they decide to stay in the store. The survivors plan to head to the oil factory, but realizing it's too far, they shift their focus to the nearby police station. They also come up with the idea of using Helen's ultraviolet light as a weapon against the vampires. Eben volunteers to be the distraction, allowing the others to make their way to the police station. He runs through the streets, screaming, drawing the attention of Marlowe, who watches from a rooftop. The survivors dash for the police station, but Doug is killed by a vampire during the escape. They make it inside, while Eben heads to Helen's house. He starts up her generator and grabs the UV lights. When the vampires arrive, Marlowe signals to Iris to go inside. As she opens the door, Eben uses the UV lights to burn her body. He radios Stella, telling her the lights worked, but the vampires destroy the generator. Bo steps up, offering to be the next distraction. He drives his tractor and slashes through vampires with the spinning blades. He also shoots heads off with his shotgun and fights off attackers with bear traps. Eben finally makes it to the police station. Bo, however, crashes the tractor into a building and, running out of ammo, faces the vampires. He lights a flare, drops it into a dynamite box, and causes an explosion that takes out several vampires. Unfortunately, Bo survives the blast, and Marlowe crushes his skull with a brutal stomp. Inside the police station, Carter then reveals that he was scratched by the vampire girl, showing the others that he's turning into a vampire. Despite his transformation, Carter expresses that he wants to die. He explains that his family was killed by a drunk driver, and he's been alone ever since. He feels that his family is waiting for him and doesn't want to live forever as a vampire. Carter begs Eben to kill him. He removes his coat and walks into another room. Eben follows him with the axe, shuts the door behind them, and ends Carter's life. Now, only Eben, Stella, Jake, Denise, and Lucy remain. While staring outside, Eben spots a light coming from Billy's house and signals back with his flashlight. He and Stella decide to check on Billy. They find him upstairs with a wounded leg, and when Eben asks about his family, Billy reveals that he killed them to spare them from the vampires. He tried to end his own life, but his gun jammed. Eben and Stella help Billy to the police station, only to find that Jake and the others are gone. Eben guesses that they must have headed to the oil factory, so he decides to go there alone. At the factory, Eben finds the group and tells Jake that he did well in leading them. Billy decides to join him, but Arvin follows him inside. Eben tries to reach Stella on the walkie-talkie, but gets no response. Inside, the survivors hear Billy's voice, and then Arvin attacks. Stronger than everyone else, Arvin beats them all and bites Billy. Just as Arvin is about to bite Eben, Billy throws him into the grinder, shredding Arvin to pieces. But in the process, Billy's arm is severed, and his screams turn into shrieks. Billy transforms into a vampire, and Eben is forced to decapitate him with the axe. As time passes, Eben keeps trying to reach Stella, but there's no response. Finally, she answers. She's hiding under a car with a young girl, Gail Robbins, who's covered in blood. Stella is freezing, but Eben urges her to hang on, reassuring her that the sun will rise tomorrow. He promises they'll be together when it does. However, several vampires are lurking around the car. Marlowe addresses the remaining vampires, telling them how it took years for them to fade into obscurity, now only considered nightmares. He orders them to hunt down and kill the last survivors to ensure the world never learns the truth about them. Meanwhile, Denise notices that the vampires have broken into the oil pipeline, causing the streets to flood with oil. Marlowe ignites a match and drops it, setting the streets ablaze. Eben realizes that if Stella and Gail try to run, they'll be killed by the vampires, but if they stay, they'll burn alive. He comes up with a desperate plan. He heads to Billy's corpse and extracts his infected blood into a needle. He shares an emotional moment with Jake, telling him to wait until all the vampires focus on him and then to tell Stella to run. Eben injects himself with Billy's blood and struggles to control the transformation. Denise and Lucy debate whether they should kill him now before he loses control, but Jake stops them, insisting that Eben should carry out his plan. Eben's eyes turn black, and he steps out of the factory, ready to face the vampires. The vampires all turn toward Eben, and Jake tells Stella to run. Eben attacks Marlowe, landing a punch, but Marlowe is stronger and beats him badly. He breaks Eben's hand and kicks him in the face, knocking out some of his teeth. Marlowe throws Eben against a car, but Eben doesn't die. When Marlowe comes at him again, Eben pushes his arm through Marlowe's head, killing him, but in the process, Marlowe's teeth bite off Eben's hand. Eben looks at the other vampires, but they just walk away. Stella sees that Eben has turned into a vampire and gets upset. Eben asks if he should chase the other vampires, but Stella says no. Jake, Denise, Lucy, and Gail, along with a few other survivors, come out from hiding as the town burns around them. They are all that's left. Eben and Stella go to the place where he saw his last sunset and hold each other tight. Eben kisses Stella one last time, and they share a final hug. The sun begins to rise, and as the light hits him, it kills Eben painfully. Stella holds onto his body, looking at the rising sun, lost in grief. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie recaps.